This is Kyber, and she's ready to learn some basic in-hand work. And she's a little dirty because as of yet she hasn't really become accustomed to the curry comb, but we'll get there. So what I'm looking to do today is teach her the very basics of in-hand work that we can later take into lateral work, any of the movements that I will want, whether in hand or under saddle. We'll start here. And I'm just getting her familiar with the whip because I noticed that when I lifted it, her breathing got a little tight. I want to just make sure she's comfortable. And what I'm looking for is that all of the responses that she gives are not immediate, but that they're thoughtful and loose. So when she lifts this leg here, I don't want her to throw it forward where she's escaping my aid, but to thoughtfully lift it. So there I released because she took her weight off that foot a little bit, and that is exactly what I'm looking for. So with this work, I'm looking for her to move united through the body, so she moves in diagonal pairs. So when this left front leg comes forward, like it will in a minute here, her right hind is the next one to come. And in a fearful horse, it's very common that the hips will wash away and the shoulders will get very heavy because they're in sort of a defensive posture all the time. So I am teaching her several things. I'm teaching her how to move in united diagonal pairs, so left front and right hind, move one after the other. And see how her left hind came next, so this is why we're working on that right there. That was a little bit better. Because she has a tendency to wash her hips around and to sort of escape the aids. So that's the first thing that I'm looking to teach her, but I'm also teaching her that I don't want her to escape the aids. I want her to be with the aids. In other words, I want her to find my rhythm and my stick to be somewhere comfortable to be and not something to escape. So she was showing there that the forward aid is not something that she's totally comfortable with. See her kind of run away from it and swing her hips around. I'm just looking for her to place one foot forward and the next one in a diagonal pair. So that was a little bit better. And you'll notice throughout this video that she starts to get a little more organized with her legs and to share the weight a little more evenly on all four legs. Initially, her front legs are pretty far apart and her hind legs are pretty close together. And that's very common for a horse with heavy shoulders. And you have to remember that heavy shoulders are what keeps a horse alive. It's what allows them to buck and bolt and kick out. All of those things require heavy shoulders, so asking her to loosen her shoulders is quite the trust exercise. So I want left front here and then right hind to come with it. And she's just a little confused there and tried to escape the forward aid. Any correction that I make, I want to make sure she understands that I don't want her to escape the correction either, that all I'm asking her to do is to stay with me here. And I like to stick my finger in their jaw sometimes to loosen their jaw, just because I find that that's very helpful for a horse who's in the habit of being tight. So I'm looking for diagonal pairs. I'm looking for the neck to loosen, the shoulders to move with a little more lightness, and not so much taking a quick route to the ground, but a little more control. So what we are looking for in a horse is a stable hind end and loose shoulders, supple shoulders, and most horses have very tight shoulders and a very unstable hind end. And that's when you'll see the horses kind of whip their hips around. That really contributes to keeping a horse in a fight or flight state of mind as well, because if their shoulders are always on the defensive, then they can't be mentally loose as easily either. Now she's starting to move in diagonal pairs. So we have right front, left hind, left front, right hind. That's perfect. And see how now she is staying with me instead of escaping my drive aid. And again, it's very important to me that they don't escape the drive aid. So I'm not looking for immediate responses. I'm looking for thoughtful responses. And I'm looking for her to bring herself to my rhythm, not to run away from me. And with a mare like this, that would be pretty easy to do, to cause her to feel the need to run away from the drive aid. And you'll notice she's starting to stand just a little more square than she started. So this is about teaching body awareness. It's about teaching them to be with the aids. It's about teaching them to walk in my rhythm and to feel comfortable following my rhythm, to loosen their neck, to supple their shoulders. It's such a simple exercise that can have such powerful changes. There, she got a little lost. But you can see her mind is loosening, her jaw is loosening, her neck is loosening. She's starting to really enjoy the effects of this. I just love this exercise to start with because it's so simple and has such a dramatic effect on a horse. They're learning all the things that I would like to carry into my saddle work, and that, when I ride a horse, I want them to stay under my seat bones and between my legs. I don't want them to run away from my leg and run away from the bit either. I don't want them to push into those things, but I don't want them to escape them. See, her neck is starting to come down. Her top line is starting to get stretched. This is exactly the mind frame and the posture that I would want her to be in when I ride. There, she got a little bit lost and went a little forward. So I'm also teaching her the beginning of a half halt as well. And a half halt is just a little rebalancing. So a horse moving united front to back in balance feels like they could stop or pause or speed up at any moment. In other words, each of these steps of hers have a little more control on the way down, and we could lengthen the stride eventually, we could stop, we could shorten the stride, and it would be available stride for stride. And you'll notice that she sometimes gets fast and then gets stopped. That's the way that a horse who's on the forehand moves, is they are rushing or they're stopped and can't go. And their front end becomes kind of like a boulder where you can push it and it's hard to push, but once it gets going, you can't stop it. So we're teaching her to move her shoulders with control and to learn that her hind end has some work in creating stability back there. So each hind foot comes under and bears weight, comes under, bears weight, comes under, bears weight. Whereas in the beginning, she would just kind of slide that hind end around as if she had no control over it. So now you can see that even though she's made some mistakes and gotten a little fast or stopped, she's getting more and more relaxed. She's getting a better movement through her body. She's getting a better rhythm. She's staying with me and feeling really safe there. All of those things are really important to me. It's one thing to affect a horse's posture, but to affect a horse's posture in a way that says that you're safe with me and you can trust me in this posture. I want your body and your mind to feel healthy and safe. That's really what this exercise is about, is teaching this mare that that's all our work will ever be about. So now we're going to play around with a little bit of a turn on the haunch, and that is where the haunches stay still and the forehand moves around it a little bit. It's another shoulder exercise for suppling. So the first part is the sort of meat and potatoes. And now I can ask her with control to move her forelegs to the side, and you'll see that her posture is very square. She's starting to organize her legs, and she's feeling pretty content about it. She's not afraid of my whip. She's not afraid of me. And on this right side, there's a little bit of a difference. You can see that she's getting a little concerned. She's not as relaxed as she was with me on her left. So just take it kind of easy. So you can tell she's a little concerned by her tipping her head away from me, and just these little shows of wanting to leave. So we just go with the flow a little bit more, stay calm, not worry a ton. And I know that she'll feel a little bit better in a second if I just adjust my expectations. There she's looking and chewing. So it could have been a much bigger deal than it needed to if I really pushed on the subject, but instead we just readjust, go with the flow, and let her just kind of relax. And there she's got nicer posture again. And there's that concern coming back up again. So we just slow it back down. It's a little different for me to be on her right side asking for things than her left. I want to make sure she understands that we can get through this together, but it isn't something to fight about. This mare's been fought with plenty in her life, I'm sure, so no good can come of muscling her around, even if it's something as simple as waiting for her to respond or soften before I release something. That in her mind will accelerate quickly into contention and resistance. So just by softening up a little on my part and slowing it down, you can get so much more. And just letting her know that it isn't the contention that she thinks it is. And then I'm just reminding her that this whip is not something to be her enemy. I want to make sure that I don't ever hit horses with my whip or tap in any way that creates tension. The whip is just something to help bring attention to a body part and to help loosen it. It should never be used for even a threat. And I think that there's a lot of people using their aids where they kind of dial it up. Like if you don't respond, then here comes the whip. And if you don't respond to the whip now, it's going to get a little harsher. So the horses respond under the threat of pain, even if there isn't pain. And that doesn't produce soft muscle movements. That produces escape. The horse is operating under the fear of more. Even if you aren't doing more, you can get a light response, but you can't get a soft response. So you have to walk that line between helping a horse understand that they can be with your aid without ignoring your aid. And see how soft her jaw get and how relaxed she got. This is really an easy way to work around these things without being contentious and without letting horses push all over you or ignore you either. And that takes a little bit of creativity, but I love her posture right here. It takes a little bit of creativity, but it's totally possible if you have a desire to get along with horses. I think that they also have the desire to get along with you. We just sometimes have to be flexible in our expectations. Now she's super relaxed, super loose in her shoulders, really loose in her neck. We're just in a great frame of mind, and that's where I'm going to leave her today. But eventually this meat and potatoes of the in-hand work will turn into the basis for shoulder in work, leg yield, and the future of any of our ridden work. So she'll understand how to stay with my aids instead of escaping them, and then when I ride her, eventually she'll stay between my legs and under my seat bones instead of running away with tension from my leg or running away with worry from my hand. And she'll be able to be a very soft and responsive horse, but one that feels good about our work as well. Anything that I do with a horse, my rule of thumb is it should produce mental and physical relaxation and balance. So I think that I've achieved my goal for today. And while I can't completely brush her just yet, I have achieved some level of balance with her in hand that she hasn't been able to get for herself yet. So I think that's a pretty good place to quit her for today.